So the heavyweight fight between Alexander Povetkin and Bermane Stiverne fell through. It was called off. It was to be for the WBC heavyweight interim title. And Povetkin popped for Ostarine, which is a banned substance under the protocol set by WADA, which is the World Anti-Doping Association. VADA, the Voluntary Anti-Doping Agency, conducted the test. It was the second time this year they've popped Povetkin for a banned substance. Ostarine is not exactly a steroid, but it acts as a steroid. It increases lean mass and strength, endurance, joint healing, testosterone levels, bone density. It's been banned by WADA since 2008. So Povetkin tested positive, and the WBC pulled their sanctioning from that fight. And Bermane Stiverne basically said, well, the only reason I wanted to do this fight was to try to win this interim title to get another crack at Deontay Wilder. So he backed out. And what ended up happening is the Russian commission, the authorities there, let Povetkin fight anyway. And the following day, he ended up fighting journeyman Johan Duhaupas, who he dominated and scored a destructive KO against. There was a British network that was going to air the card from Moscow, and they decided ultimately against it because they felt it was unethical that Povetkin was fighting just 24 hours after failing this test. I did too, and I made a rant video about it. I went up on the roof and ranted about it, and really I made that video for three reasons. One, to express disgust that that fight happened, the Povetkin-Duhaupas fight. Two, to double down on the opinion that I feel VADA is the absolute best drug test that we have in boxing, and any elite level fighter not enrolled in VADA, you should be suspicious of. And three, just to express the frustration that a lot of fans have that, you know, they've been ripped off of some great potential fights and some great storylines because of athletes trying to cheat and getting caught this year from these drug tests. So I made that video. Most people enjoyed it. It was a rant video. It was off the cuff. It wasn't scripted, obviously. That's why I do these rant videos here on my cell phone. The other scripted stuff, you know, that's a little more controlled, a little more professional. You guys know I really am careful with my language and my nuance, but there were some of you out there who just did not appreciate some of the semantics of my video and some of the phraseology, the words I used, the phrases I used. And there's just been this lynch mob of Povetkin people that have questioned my journalistic integrity. They've called me liars. They've called me xenophobic, racist, all kinds of other stupid, idiotic shit that I'm used to being called from the dummy graphic. So I guess I got a Povetkin dummy graphic attacking me this time. There's always somebody mad at me. I guess that's how I know I must be doing a good job. So I felt compelled to make this video and set the record straight on this Alexander Povetkin thing and the Bermane Stiverne thing, because as I mentioned in my rant video, Stiverne has tested positive before too. So I want to give all the detail, all the nuance, all the rulings and hearings. I'm going to read some of this shit straight off of these hearings. Look, if this kind of video isn't your cup of tea and you just don't care about these details, skip this video. I hear you. It's all good. I got more videos coming down the pipe over the next couple weeks as we close out the year. I got year-end awards. I got year-end pound-for-pound list. Some good stuff coming up. So just watch out for that. But if you are interested in this kind of thing, stick around because you might learn some details you didn't know before about this whole situation because, as usual, there's people out there twisting and spinning things and suppressing this part and exaggerating that part to push a particular bias they might have or sensitivity. Okay, before I get started with some of the details here, or we're going to have to go all the way back to earlier this year, even a little bit before this year. I want to preface something, okay? Well, first of all, some of you Twitter heroes who are saying, Mike, in your face. I'm just looking at some of these tweets here on my laptop below here. I told you so, in your face, Mike, and all this kind of stuff when Povetkin popped. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And some of you guys who messaged me like, oh, that guy on Twitter got you, like Rob Palmer. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I didn't fail the test. And when I said on Twitter, these guys are enrolled in VADA, so they're certified clean, I didn't realize that in the 140 character universe of Twitter, I had to do the thinking for some of you. I guess I thought too highly of you and thought you had a brain. I thought you understood that what I was saying is, obviously, not just enrolling in VADA means you're clean, but you actually have to pass the fucking test. I thought that was just understood and insinuated. So for those of you who thought you got me because I said that these guys were clean because they're enrolled in VADA and then woke up the next morning to see that Povetkin had popped, you didn't get me, motherfucker. The whole point of me tweeting this shit out is because VADA's supposed to catch people. Obviously, you're clean if you enroll in VADA and pass the test. I get it. You know, there might be ways that these guys are cheating the test now that VADA hasn't quite caught up to, but based on all the knowledge we have, the latest and greatest, the technology we have, VADA's the best. So if you're enrolled in VADA and you actually pass the fucking test, yes, you're certified clean in my opinion. As clean as we know right now with the technology we have. Moving on. I'm looking down here at my laptop, and you're going to have to bear with me. This is going to be a long-winded video, okay? Because I want to make sure we get all this stuff straight. Some of you are expressing opinions that the WBC, the American Boxing Press, was slandering Povetkin, and that I was slandering Povetkin by saying that he popped twice for a banned substance this year. You didn't like the way I used that word. Maybe I said failed test or popping on a test or testing positive, whatever nuance you want to use. He has tested positive for a banned substance twice this year, and we're going to get into that. Povetkin tested positive back in November, Stiverne tested positive back in November as well. And a lot of you are out there trying to spin things and make it sound like the WBC treated Stiverne, gave him preferential treatment, and really screwed over Povetkin in this whole deal. Well, that's bullshit. And I'm going to explain why. It's going to take a while, so sit tight. Let's go back to earlier this year when Alexander Povetkin was slated to face Deontay Wilder May 21st in Moscow. This fight took forever to negotiate. Al Heyman and his people did what they always do. They stalled, they delayed, they pushed it back as far as they could. Finally, they agreed to it. Deal was signed, and it was going to take place in Moscow, and Deontay Wilder was over in the UK training for the fight to get used to the time, right? Instead of training in America, he went over to Europe to train. A month before the fight, in April, both of these guys were in VADA testing, by the way, Wilder and Povetkin. And specifically with Povetkin, VADA conducted tests on April 7th, 8th, 11th, and 27th, 4 times in April. He was negative for any banned substance on the 7th, the 8th, and the 11th. But on the 27th, he tested positive for banned substance Meldonium, okay? Meldonium has been on the banned substance list only this year. WADA just added it to the banned substance list. Real quick, talking about the banned substances list, they're not all steroids. You guys got to understand, some of these things help you heal faster. Some of them give you more endurance. Some of them help your joints heal. Some of them help recovery, all kinds of stuff, okay? So some of them are literally just on the list because high school football players have died for ingesting some of the stuff. Some of it's literally ingredients in energy drinks, in supplements that you buy from GNC. Some of that crap is dangerous. You shouldn't take it. But not all of the substances on the banned substances list are steroids, okay? Meldonium's not a steroid, but it was added to the list this year. So when Povetkin popped, now A sample, B sample, let me explain this real quick. VADA will take the sample, they do an A sample, a B sample. If they test the A sample and it's negative, they don't even bother testing the B sample. If the guy's clean, there's no reason. But if they test the A sample and it comes up positive, then they also look at the B sample to confirm it and make sure no contamination happened. That's what they did here. So Povetkin tested positive for 0.07 micrograms per milliliter of meldonium in the A sample. They looked at the B sample, 0.072 micrograms per milliliter of meldonium in the B sample, okay? So it's confirmed. He popped. He popped on a drug test for a banned substance, guys. The way VADA works is if you have anything more than 0.1 micrograms per milliliter of any banned substance in your system, it's a pop test and they report it. It is up to the authorities afterwards to decide how to handle it. VADA just conducts the test. But there was 0 trace elements of meldonium in Povetkin's body earlier in April, and then suddenly there was trace elements in his body in late April. That's the reality. Deal with it. Now, The WBC immediately conducted an investigation. And they talked to Povetkin's people, and Povetkin admitted that he used Meldonium in 2015 when it wasn't banned yet. And his claim was that it hadn't phased all the way out of his body in April when he took that test. The WBC said, okay, well, it's kind of weird because you tested negative 3 times and then tested positive. And he said, well, it's just trace elements and you know, maybe it just wasn't in my system that day and it came back into my system. And I'm paraphrasing a little here. I'm not going to read the paragraphs of information there, but that's basically what happened, okay? Now, WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, they had a ruling or a ruling on Meldonium. Now, I'm going to post a link to this in the comments section so you guys can see it. But this is on April 12th, okay? In between all those tests that were taken. This was their ruling basically on Meldonium because there's still a lot of information that's up in the air and they're still discovering when it comes to this drug. It's kind of one of those gray area drugs, okay? I'm just going to read a few quick sections from this ruling. On page 1, section A, they say, limited data exists to date on the urinary excretion of Meldonium. Renal elimination of Meldonium is expected to vary significantly between individuals, depending on dosing and duration of the drug. Renal means kidney. So basically what they're saying here is we're still studying, we're still trying to figure out, but for some people it burns off quickly, for some people it stays in their system longer. There's no consistent burn off or phase or half-life cycling with Meldonium. It's different for everybody, so far based on the latest testing. Page 2, section B. This is important. The mere presence of Meldonium in an athlete's sample collected on or after January 1st, 2016 constitutes an anti-doping rule violation under Article 2.1 of the code, which triggers the results management process. Now, the management process is basically they go through a certain protocol to determine the steps to take if a guy pops, okay? But right here it says very, very clearly, the mere presence, trace element or a lot, the mere presence is a violation, okay? But here's the second part of that. Page 3, section 2B. If the concentration is below 1 microgram per milliliter, which it was for Povetkin, and the test was taken after March 1st, and it was, given that the results of ongoing excretion studies are needed to determine the time of ingestion, results may be stayed. May be stayed. Not shall be stayed or will be stayed. May be stayed. What does be stayed mean? That basically means if you so choose, the governing body, it's basically at their discretion. That's what the may means. They can say, we're going to stop going through the management process here. We're going to give this dude a pass. Too much gray area, okay? There's other parts of this this ruling where it says shall proceed or shall be stayed. On this particular ruling, it said may. So basically, it was up to the WBC to decide, right? I'm going to go here to the WBC. They had a hearing about this. And they took Povetkin's side and WADA's information and put it together. And there was an expert witness from Deontay Wilder's promotional side, full disclosure. An expert witness named Dr. Daniel Eichner, who is the current president of the Sports Medicine Research and Testing Laboratory in Salt Lake City, one of only 2 accredited WADA labs in the United States. He testified that it would be impossible to test negative for Meldonium 3 times and then test positive days later without having ingested it in the interim. He further stated that 0.07 micrograms per milliliter would be the normal level of Meldonium, in his professional opinion, to find in an athlete's system if the week after they had ingested it. So in his expert opinion, 3 negative tests and a positive test showed that Povetkin clearly ingested Meldonium in the interim. But WADA was saying, dude, basically too much gray area. The WBC sided with WADA, not with Deontay Wilder's promotional team. I think it was Lou DiBella that brought this guy on, his expert opinion. They actually sided with WADA on this, okay? And the WPC, that was smart business because they've had issues before where they were sued over title fight's not happening. Just Google Graziano Roccagiani. If you don't know how to spell that name, just tweet me and I'll tell you how. But he sued the hell out of the WBC. Okay, so they didn't want any type of lawsuits or anything. They sided with WADA, the gray area, and that's what I meant in my rant video when I said Povetkin got the benefit of the doubt, even though it looked really suspicious. Okay, gets the benefit of the doubt. WBC says it would not ban Povetkin from competing for its title because, quote, the impossibility to scientifically prove that Mr. Povetkin ingested Meldonium after July 1st, 2016, unquote. So they sanctioned an interim bout between him and Bermane Stiverne, the WBC number 1 and number 2 rated available contenders at the time. They also said, this is part of the WBC's ruling, quote, VADA would design a specific testing protocol for Mr. Povetkin at his own cost and expense. The VADA design protocol will commence as soon as feasible after this ruling and continue for 1 year thereafter. Further, if there is any future positive test, this is important, the WBC said it would suspend Mr. Povetkin from participation in any WBC sanctioned events indefinitely, divest Mr. Povetkin from any WBC title or any other rights he might have at the time, and impose any and all available penalties under the Clean Boxing Program, or CBP, without further inquiry. So that was the ruling back in April, for the April positive test, okay? And Povetkin and his people signed on, and Stiverne and his people were on board too. Both sides VADA tested. So when the WBC the other day pulled their sanctioning from the bout because Povetkin popped again on a test for another banned substance, they were only following the ruling that they put together that Povetkin's people agreed to earlier this year. They weren't being inconsistent. There wasn't a witch hunt out for Povetkin. They were just going along with the protocol that they set forth in that ruling earlier this year. Now, Bermane Stiverne, a lot of you guys have been hearing that he popped for a test and that the WBC gave him preferential treatment and they're being xenophobic and prejudiced against Alexander Povetkin. Well, that's just flat out not true. Let me give the details on this one. So on November 4th, Bermane Stiverne tested positive for a dietary supplement. I'm not even going to pronounce this damn word. It's known as DMAA. It's a dietary supplement and an ingredient that is found in supplements you can buy in stores, GNC, gyms, whatever. It usually aids with energy. It has been linked, increasing your energy, helping your recovery. It has been linked to reports of life-threatening side effects. Okay, it was added to WADA's doping list in 2010, so it's been on there for a while. And they immediately, after popping Stiverne for this, the WBC conducted an investigation, the exact same way they treated Povetkin back in April. Stiverne says that he took a dietary supplement called Superfarm, farm spelled with a PH, right in front of the sample collector. Took it right in front of the VADA sample collector. And or he reported taking the supplement on the doping control form right in front of the sample collector. So when you do the test, you have to fill out a control form. And it's honestly like that with even State Athletic Commission urine test. You fill out, are you on any medications? Have you taken any supplements? If so, which ones? If you've taken any drugs? If so, which ones? Boom, you have to list it. And he took Superfarm, and he wrote it on his form, right? When he took the test. So full disclosure, wasn't trying to hide nothing. When I was like, yeah, I took this supplement called Superfarm. Boom, it has this DMAA in it. He further said, Stiverne, in a statement, that he was sold the supplement, which he was sold a supplement, that Superfarm stuff, which contains DMAA as an ingredient, by EOS Gym in Henderson, Nevada, to post-workout fatigue. Henderson, Nevada is a suburb of Las Vegas where he trains, where he's training for that fight anyway. So he bought this, basically an energy drink at a store, at a gym, and it had that supplement, or it had that drug in it. Boom, he popped. The WBC found there was no evidence that Stiverne had ever ingested a banned substance without the intent to enhance his performance for a fight, and that his ingestion of DMAA was accidental. They ruled that this was a first violation of the WBC CBP. In other words, the first time Stiverne had popped. Again, treated the same way as Povetkin. This is right here off of the WBC statement, their ruling. The WBC will now withdraw its sanction of the bout, the Povetkin bout, at this point, in light of the fact that there is sufficient time to put in place preventative and remedial measures to protect the health and safety of the bout's participants. With an S. Both participants, not just Stiverne. Because remember, this happened back in November 4th, so this was basically a month and a half before the fight. So they had time to retest Stiverne, and they did, and he passed. Boom. Further, VADA, pursuant to the WBC Clean Boxing Program, or CBP, will design a specific testing protocol for Stiverne at Stiverne's own cost and expense. The VADA design protocol will commence as soon as feasible after this ruling and continue until about and for 6 months thereafter. Now, there's a little bit of nuance. For Povetkin, it was a year thereafter. For Stiverne, it was 6 months thereafter. Now, some of you guys might think that, this is preferential treatment for Stiverne. Given the inconsistency of the test results with Povetkin, and given the difference in the drugs that were ingested and how they were ingested, and the history of when they were ingested according to both athletes, that is why I personally believe they did 1 year versus 6 months. But for those of you who think that there's preferential treatment, well, let me read more from this, because it's the exact same as the Povetkin statement. In the event that there is an adverse finding concerning any of Stiverne's samples during the time prescribed above, the 6 months, the WBC shall immediately suspend Stiverne from participation in any WBC sanctioned events indefinitely, divest Stiverne from any WBC title and any other rights he might have at the time, and impose any of the all available penalties under the CBP without further inquiry. Boom. The exact same as Povetkin. But there's more. They also fined Stiverne $75,000 and ordered him to 40 hours of community service related to him educating people about performance-enhancing drugs. That didn't happen to Povetkin. So if anyone got preferential treatment here, guys, it was not Stiverne, right? He had to pay 75 G's, 40 hours of community service educating on performance-enhancing drugs. So we circle back now to last week when Povetkin popped. And again, WBC pulled their sanctioning. They weren't treating him unfairly. They weren't giving Stiverne a pass and screwing over Povetkin like some of you are out there saying. They were just following their ruling. Had Stiverne popped again, they would have pulled the sanctioning the exact same way. They basically handled both first occurrences as a first violation, put them on a probationary basis, and said, if you pop again, dude, that's it. That's all that happened here. So the lynch mob that's attacking me and attacking anybody else and attacking Stiverne after they attacked Deontay Wilder earlier this year. Look, you're being no better than some of these guys who blindly protected Floyd Mayweather with IV-gate. And you guys know I got called all kinds of names when I did that video, the IV-gate thing. And I'm called all sorts of nasty stuff from that side. You're being no better. There isn't an unethical, unfair lynch mob going out after, or witch hunt going after Alexander Povetkin. It's not happening. And let me double down on this. Let me give full disclosure, okay? Right now we have a Slavic invasion kind of happening in boxing. It's no different than the Hispanic invasion that happened over the last several decades. And you go back before that, there was an Italian invasion back in the early first half of the 20th century. Every immigrant group that has come to America and fought their way to a better life succeeded in boxing first and then started to migrate over into other sports, be it baseball, football, basketball, whatever. And when they first go through that process in boxing, they're the new kids on the block, and there's a lot of people out there who don't want to accept it. And they have to prove themselves 2-3 times as much as some other fighters of other demographics. And it used to be for a while, man, if you were a fighter of Hispanic heritage, and again, Hispanic is not a race. There's no such thing as a Mexican race. There's white Mexicans, black Hispanics, white Hispanics, mestizo, mulatto, whatever. Whatever. If you were a fighter of Latin heritage and you came here to the States, or even if you were born here in America and you're of Hispanic heritage, you had to prove yourself twice as much as a black American fighter. to just with the boxing media, with boxing fans, with the networks, to prove you were legit. And you were called straight up and down and basic. You were called a limited brawler, no skills, right? After a while, people got used to those names. And now, sometimes still, a fighter from Mexico has to prove himself twice as much as a guy like, let's say, Terrence Crawford. Okay? That's just the reality of it. With certain groups in the boxing media and stuff like that. And by the way, it's not just black people. There's a lot of white people that feel that way. Whether they're guilt-ridden cucks that hate themselves because they're white, or because they've been indoctrinated by college professors and the media and everything else, by HBO, whatever it is, some of them are just as bad. And now with the Eastern Europeans, these guys have to prove themselves twice as much to a Mexican fighter, 3 times as much to a black American fighter. It's just the reality. In terms of getting that cred, that street cred among diehard boxing fans that know better. And what I find that's interesting is the most supporters of the Eastern European fighters when it comes to demographic of fans is Hispanic fans. There are more Mexican fans here in LA of Gennady Golovkin than any other ethnic group here in LA. And I think it's because a lot of those Mexican fight fans can relate to what these Eastern European Slavic dudes are going through right now, because it's what a lot of their favorite fighters growing up went through. They saw it happen, and now they're seeing it happen with the new guys on the block. So they can relate, right? That's what I find most interesting. So I recognize that. And I recognize that some of you are really overly sensitive to protect and stick up for some of these guys from Eastern Europe because you feel that they get a lot of shit. And dare I say, pound for pound, they get more shit than any other group of fighters out there right now, at least in America, and among British broadcasters scoring fights. I hear you, but you gotta chill out on this Povetkin thing. He fucked up. And even further disclosure, you guys know me as an Italian guy, and I'm like 3/4 Italian. You know, I got Italian blood on both sides of my family, but I have Eastern European blood on my mom's side. I have Slavic blood on my mom's side of my family. And that's a dominant fucking gene. Where do you think I get my height from? Where do you think I get my coloring from? It comes from that gene. So, look, my hair is actually wavy. If I grow it out, you'll see that, and I can tan like a motherfucker thanks to my Italian side. But I have that in me too. And for those of you accusing me of hating Eastern European fighters, well, then I must hate part of my mom's fucking family or something. So it's just ridiculous, okay? I understand, again, the need to stick up for these guys when they're getting unfairly beat up on. And trust me, I've done that. You know I have. But this isn't the case with Povetkin. And you guys fighting over little nuances, okay? Well, he didn't really fail a test because under that WADA ruling, if you're under 1 microgram, you know, blah, 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 and it's after March 1st, it technically isn't. It's a banned substance in his system that wasn't there and then suddenly was there. I don't care if it's traces, okay? If you have 3 guys with 3 checking accounts, right? And this man has $0 in his checking account, this man has $100, this man has $1 million. Guess what? 2 of the 3 people have money in their checking account. Boom. So that's what's up, okay? And both guys tested positive. The first time they were given the benefit of the doubt, which was me, my way in my rant video of condensing the last 25 fucking minutes of this video into one sentence. That was me truncating. And again, I would assume that those of you with brains would understand what I'm saying in that sentence. But you didn't, so I had to detail it here. They were given the benefit of the doubt, putting on probation, basically, and Povetkin fucked up again. So hopefully now we can put this thing to bed. Hopefully the 100+ comments, tweets, emails, messages I've received on various platforms slandering the fuck out of me or accusing me of slandering Alexander Povetkin can stop. Hopefully we can move the fuck on and get back to more important things. Right now, the WBC and everyone's going to conduct an investigation into Alexander Povetkin and figure out what to do with him next. As far as I'm concerned, he'd have to be a fucking idiot to ingest Ostarine, knowing that for 1 year he was having everyone on his ass watching him. You'd have to be a fucking moron, and he did it. So at this point, him, guys like Lucas Brown, who I like, who had a great performance against Ruslan Shigaev earlier this year. Dude, you popped twice. Right? Fool me once. Shame on me. I'm not even going to go into that thing. I'm just saying, it's the reality, guys. So you got to accept it, okay? I know it hurts, but you got to accept it. Now let's all move on. Let's get back to basics.